Well, Airfix have finally got a new floaty thing out. It's the brand new RNLI Shannon Class lifeboat, and it's a starter set. Time for some first impressions.
Welcome to Model Kit Stuff, where you'll find all of this.
Hello, welcome to Model Kit Stuff. Yes, first impressions time, and I'm pleased to say we've got a new boat from Airfix. Really exciting. So this is a starter set, so it's aimed at people just starting out in the hobby. So we're gonna see a kit that has been simplified, instructions that have been made even more intuitive, if that's possible, to what they ordinarily do. And we're going to see some freebies in the kit, or items included in the kit, I guess, some paint and some brushes and some glue. So let's have a proper look. So what we get is a skill level 1, which is what we'd expect. Kit tells us here, skill level 1. We get 1 flying hour. If you're new to modelling or new to Airfix kits, you can collect those, become a member of the Airfix club, and then you get a little passport and you can trade these in for free kits. So yeah, really good. Has a little bit of history here about the Shannon Class. Has an image of the completed model on the side with the paint layout. So just one paint scheme because it's a starter set, and all nicely laid out and easy to see. The sides of the kit pretty much emulate what you can see on the top, but it does tell you that we're going to get some poly cement, 2 paint brushes and 6 acrylic paints. Yeah, both ends are the same. Then we've got Airfix contact information on the bottom, and it tells us that it's a 2024 tooling, and the decals and the packaging's 2024 as well. And when we look over here, it tells us it's made in India, and we've got cartograph decals. And then when we look on the back, we've got our paint and decal placement instructions. It also tells us that the overall length is 190 millimeters. So nice size, but it's 172 scale, which means you can do all sorts of stuff with that, because there's so much stuff around 172, figures and stuff. It's a great size for dioramas, what have you. And we can see that the model is coming with a display stand as well, so that's all very good. And these are the paints that we should get in included in the box. So in reality, you've not got everything you need in the kit. You've got paints and brushes, which are products that the Hornby Hobbies company sells separately anyway, but you are going to need 1 or 2 other things, like possibly an emery board to do a bit of sanding, and something to remove the parts from the sprue. So obviously you don't get everything, but they go a long way to getting you started. Now, also on the front we have a little it's not a label, it's actually on the print of the box, and it tells us that every kit bought gives a 90p donation to the RNLI, which is really nice. So by buying the kit, you're supporting the lifeboats. So that's fantastic, because obviously they're a charity. Some people think they're a government function in the same way as the ambulance services, but no, it's a charity set up by working class people to save lives. So a really nice charity. I like to support them when I can. So yeah, Okay, great box. So let's take a look next at what we get in the box. So inside the box, we've got our instruction manual. We've got a before you start leaflet. We've got our decals. We've got 2 different sizes of paintbrush, paints and glues, clear parts, and our plastic parts. Now, the instructions we'll have a proper look at in a moment. The before you start leaflet is something included in starter sets, which has got helpful advice on for those building a model for the first time maybe. Decals, if you've not built a model kit before, they're not transfers. You soak them in water and then place them on, and we'll be looking at that when we build it. Paintbrushes, 2 different sizes, one for larger coverage and one for smaller details. Then it says you get 6 pots of paint, but actually I got 10, but I do have 6 colours. So it's possible that when they test built it, they decided there wasn't quite enough paint in just one pot of some of the colours. And so they've given you some more, but yeah, you've actually got, I've got 10. And then we've got a little tube of poly cement. Some people don't like it just because it's in a tube, but the glue is perfectly usable. We have our clear parts in a separate bag, and we'll look at those in a minute as well. And then we've got our remaining plastic parts, which are all in the same bag. The clear parts are in the same bag as well, and we'll talk all about that in a moment, but let's have a look at our instructions first. So let's just have a quick look at the before you start leaflet. It's A4, single-sided, and slightly shiny. It's not matte like the rest of their instructions, and it's got some really useful tips for anyone who's never built a kit before. So if someone gets this as a birthday present, Christmas present, or what have you, and they've never built a model before, they're actually going to be okay. It tells you to wash your parts. It tells you to look for frame letters and part numbers. So it's explaining how the sprues work. It's talking about how to remove them, clean them up, drill holes if you need to, how to place parts when they're small, that you need to test fit. That the yellow in the instructions shows you where to put the glue, which is something they do on the starter sets. That you might want to use clothes pegs or some tape to hold some parts together when they dry, hold them in place. Stir your paint thoroughly. I'm glad they don't say shake. I like that. You can paint some small parts on the frame if you wish. Allow time to dry between coats. It's recommending 2 hours. That will be for their Humbrol paints. Cut decals out with scissors. Hold them in the water for 20 seconds. Again, there's different ways of doing it. Slide decals off the sheet and onto the model. Now, all of those are really good instructions. And when I gave my daughter a starter set, which was the Red Arrow starter set, the new tool one, a couple of years ago now, I would guess, she didn't look at this. She picked up the instruction sheet and got going. Now, in fairness to her, that was probably her third kit. And I said to her, do you not want to look at those? And she said, do I need to? So for me, I love this. I absolutely love it. It really clearly lays out for younger people what you need to be doing. I really think it's fabulous. But I think it'd be even better if it was actually the first page of the instructions and not a separate sheet. Then it's not going to get ignored. It also would be matte, so it'd be a bit easier on the eye. It's something else not to get lost. So That's my only comment on that. Otherwise, I absolutely love it. Right, let's take a look at our instructions proper. So, standard format instructions. So we get a little bit of history, we get some specifications of the lifeboat itself, we get warnings in multiple languages. Our usual comment here that I think a lot of people miss about washing parts, I mean, for me, that should be step one. I'd like to see them move that to there and go, one, wash your parts, as a little corner comment, but you know, that's just me. You can always improve anything, can't you? Then we get in assembly instructions, which tells you to study your instructions and test fit and that sort of stuff. Then, unusually for Airfix, we actually get a sprue map or a list of contents, not something that is usually included in an Airfix kit. And well, I was a bit alarmed when I first saw these plastic parts, but we'll talk about that when we get to them. But it tells us we've got sprue A, sprue B, sprue C, and clear parts D, which they've put in a different colour, and our decals. So that's what we get in the kit. Now, in reality, some of these are big parts and they're actually loose in the box. So not all of these come attached, and you can see that there's no connection points there. And then they've got a little diagram. They don't particularly explain it, but it is telling you that you've got ejector pins that you need to remove. So anything that looks like that, cut off. So yeah. Now, when I say they don't explain it, when you move on to the next section where we've got our little key of icons, there is an icon there that says cut, so you can work it out. Right, so assembly proper starts with our base, our display base. Now, it's been designed in a way that it looks like a cradle for holding the boat, and I think that's really, really lovely, and it's given me some ideas as to what I want to do with it when we come to build it. But yeah, so that is being built together. You've got your paint instructions, you've got your positions for your glues. Really, really nice. You know, there isn't a stone unturned there, is there? And it shows you at the end here a little picture of what it should look like. So if you're new to modeling, or especially if you're a youngster, you can really orientate yourself with, right, my parts are on this sprue. This is how I'm putting it together. This is where I'm putting the glue. That's the colour they want me to paint it, and that's what it should look like at the end. Fabulous. Step two, and we're bringing our 2-half hull together with some braces, and then we've got the transom at the end, which goes on as a third part. So that's a really nice way of doing the hull. And you can see where they showed you little purple bits to cut off. We can see those purple bits being shown there on the sprue map. Absolutely lovely. Attention to detail, lots of it. Really, really nice. Flipping over, step 3, and we're putting in the floor pan. Then we've got our propellers going on the back. Step 4, we're building up the cabin structure. So looks quite complicated. There's lots of little arrows going on, but actually if you look at it, it will make sense, and when you test fit it like they've told you to do, it'll all make sense as well. So we're building up this rear construction here as a sub-assembly, and then we're putting these 2 parts in to build up the back bulkhead and a little mounting position there. So all very good, and then they're showing you an upside down image of what that should all look like built up. Step 5, and we're putting our clear parts in, and to make it easy, they've given you all the clear parts molded into one separate thing, and they've even designed in positions for adding the glue so that you can put that in nicely. There's some interior detail going in. very basic, but you won't see a lot through those windows, so it's sufficient. And then we can see that with the glazing in, looks very nice. Step 6, we add that in place. Yeah, so it's showing you put the glue on the floor pan, but in reality you'd put it on there. You put it on the actual part. You put it on the upturned part. So yeah, youngsters beware, because if you try and put the glue on there, there's no way of controlling the spread of the glue, and so you might make a mess. So yeah, not sure about that really. They really want to show you putting the glue on the part, not the area that the part goes on where glue is connecting, because they're telling you to put the glue on the part being mated rather than the mating part. That'll make sense to most of you, I think. Right, step 7, with our hull upside down, we're adding some parts on. Now, we've already painted this, so now we're adding parts on. That'll give you a problem because you'll have painted over that. So for me, step 7 is probably in the wrong place, and probably is your step 3. So build up your hull in step 2. And put that on so you've got a nice rigid structure, and at the point you put your propellers on, I would also be putting those on, because you've got your stand to rest it on, so they're not going to get damaged. Yeah, I think I question why they're doing that in step 7. Step 8, and we're putting on the smaller details on the top, and possibly that's why they did that in step 7, right? Smaller details was the way of thinking, but no, I think they're wrong there. Step 8, so we put all these smaller details on, lots of little things going into place, like it looks like a mounting for something, or a capstan or something like that. We've got all sorts of little tie-off points. A lot of the we've got little A-frame cranes and the door that allows you to go in, and all those sort of little details going on, which is very nice, and again shows you what that looks like afterwards. Then we've got more small parts going on, so grab rails primarily being mounted on. Again, it's busy, so take your time and look at how this is going together. Test fit it, won't be a problem. More railings going on. Step 12, we've got rear railings going on with life rings. Then we've got the remainder of the deck railings going on, and also the windshield for the person driving the boat. Yeah, okay, very nice. Then we're building up the, it's not really the mast, but it's the structure that's got the radar on and all the communications equipment and bits and pieces. So that gets mounted on the back there. So that's going to look really nice, actually. This, as a start set, is going to look really cool. Then we've got aerials going on. That must be near the end. You're not going to put delicate parts on after that. Yeah, it is pretty much. So then, step 15 is mount it onto your base. It's saying don't glue it on, just place it on. Great, that means you can take it off and put it in your bath later on. And then it says step 16, add decals at this stage, see rear of pack for positions. So, okay, again, some of those decals you might want to put on before you've got all of this on. So the decals on the hull, I would definitely be putting those on before you start putting all the fine details on. It'd be just easier to handle the model when you're doing it. So I think I'd be tempted to disagree with that. So there's 2 steps in there that I'd say maybe they should have said, right, once you've painted that, put the decals on, and once you've painted that, put the decals on, because you know, getting in amongst all the aerials to put that roof decal on, not the easiest thing. So you know what, yeah, that's our instructions done. Nice and clear, easy to follow, no problems. Okay, our decals, and they come with this little piece of paper to protect them. So what we've got is a nice sheet of decals laid out in such a way as it's easy to get around them with scissors, especially for youngsters, so it's not a cluttered space. We have our hull markings there, various little bits, the names, the little stripes that are going to go onto the lifeboat. This is our logo that goes on the display base. Yeah, and the lifeboat sign that goes on the side there, and some instrument decals by the looks of it as well. Now, I must tell you at this point that separately there is a separate sheet of decals that is available. They haven't turned up with my kit, but I have ordered them. You get everything you need to build the first edition, which is named Jock and Annie Slater. Well, I have to admit I'm a little bit confused here. So the box clearly says that we get polycement, 2 paintbrushes and 6 acrylic paints. However, I have 10 paints and 7 different colours. So, okay, but did I get some freebies? I don't know. What we've got is number 11, which is silver. We've got 15, which is the blue for the hull. We've got 18, which is the orange for the upper works. We've got 27, which is a grey. We've got 33, which is matte black. 34, which is matte white. And then on the end here, we've got 56, which is aluminium, I think. And you can see that this one has leaked. Now, there isn't any paint on any of these pots or on the inside of the bags, so that happened before it was packed, and it was still packed anyway. So that's a warning to me, because that means that this might have had the seal broken and the paint might have gone off, but in this case it hasn't. So yeah, now little tip: if you're new to the hobby and you're watching this video, to have a look at the kit that you've just got. These paint pots here that have a hinge on, you can see there's 2 types. Some don't have a hinge on, some do. These ones, despite the big lip and the hinge, they're no easier to open than these. These are simple to open as well. But my tip is, get rid of the hinge, because what happens is it forces that lid to close, and when you've got a paintbrush in your hand, what you're trying to do is you're trying to go in with the paint and hold the lid open, and it becomes a faff. So get yourself your side cutters that you're going to use for taking the parts off, and just whip that hinge off and save yourself a load of time and hassle. So a little tip there for you. Right, 2 brushes. The Humbrol brushes are great brushes. I love the Humbrol brushes. The black ones, they're sort of generic range, so they will handle acrylics, but they'll also handle enamels as well for you if you prefer to use enamel paints. The paints that we've got here are all acrylics, so you can actually thin them with water, but Humbrol also do an acrylic thinner, which is very, very good. Some acrylic thinners, you've got to really go at it to mix them in with the paint, but the Humbrol one is a really nice product and thins the paint lovely, and you get a really nice consistency. If you are new to building the hobby, then there's no primer in here, so if you don't want to prime, that's fine. But what you'll have to do is put lots of thin coats on, and the first 2 or 3 might look quite scruffy, but eventually it'll all come good. And then we've got some tube glue, and what you want to do with that is just decant some onto a little bit of cardboard, and then use something like a cocktail stick to apply that glue, which is how I used to do it as a kid. So yeah, everything in here good and usable. don't be tempted to chuck these paints away. If you're a seasoned modeler, they are good paints, they are usable, and they are the right colours, so why wouldn't you? When I come to build it, I will be building it using the paints supplied in the kit, although I may well be airbrushing much of it, but always nice to have a couple of new brushes. Right, let's start off with our clear parts. And we've got two pieces here. So we've got the glazing for the main superstructure, and then we've got the windshield for the pilot. I don't know, whoever's driving the boat, they have this little windshield. So if we look at these first, they're lovely and clear. I mean, look at those, absolutely crystal clear. Very, very nicely done. Lovely, flat and smooth. And I like what they've done here with, you've basically got a couple of gluing points. So this is countersunk. You perhaps can't see that on the camera, but that there is countersunk. It's on both sides. That's where you put in your blob of glue to attach it in. So you've got glue going realistically nowhere near the glazing. So even if you're using that tube hot glue that's supplied, you shouldn't get any fogging. The one downside to them doing this as all one piece, I mean, I think for a starter set, it's a great idea. It makes it a lot easier for particularly youngsters to pop this into place and line it all up. And it also means that they can do them a bit thinner. If they were individual, they'd be a bit thicker. But there is a downside. And the downside is this mounting piece here goes into the top of all the glazing, so you can see the mounting point. You see what I'm talking about just there? You can see that in the top ridge of all of those. Now, whether that disappears when it's popped into the actual piece, I don't know, but I suspect it won't. So you will get that funny little line, but yeah. Not to worry. Now, this piece here on my model, my kit is not so good, because there we go. You can see it there. So the flow of the plastic has left a witness in the clear parts there. So what it's doing is it's giving us a load of distortion. So if I put something behind it, you'll see that the shape of it moves. So yeah, not coming out quite so well on camera, but it changes the direction of objects behind it. Now, there is no objects behind it. Sometimes when you put stuff behind it, it makes that disappear. So I think because there's nothing behind it, that might be a little bit more obvious on the finished model. I also have something, I'm not quite sure what it is. There's a mark or something on that. That might just polish out though. But actually, it's nice and crisp. You've got some fine detail on there, which skilled, experienced modelers will no doubt attempt to put in. But you could just glue that in as a clear part on its own, and it would look perfectly fine. So no major issues with the parts from a beginner's modeler point of view. From a more experienced modeler's point of view, then I think that piece could have been a little better. Right then, the main plastic parts, and before we delve into them and look at them properly, I have a bit of an issue that I want to talk about. So I have rebagged these. All of these parts came together in the one bag. And lots of manufacturers do that, and I sort of do have a grumble about it, but I also don't have a grumble about it. It's a common approach. Now, when you put everything in one bag, you do have the risk of some parts getting broken and lost, and the manufacturer takes the risk that that parts aren't going to get broken, and that if a small percentage do, that they can replace them and it doesn't have a big overall effect. But my issue with these parts is the sprue. So if you look at these sprues, what you can see is there's no outer frame. It's like how they were done in the 70s. So this isn't really a sprue, it's a tree of parts. So it's a tree because it's got branches, it's got a main trunk and then it's got branches going off and the parts are suspended off those. Why is that an issue? Well, let me show you a different sprue and then I can explain. Right, so we've got a sprue from a different kit here and it's got lots and lots of small parts. And when I shake the sprue, nothing happens. Why? Because the outer frame that turns this into a sprue gives the whole thing stability. So when you flex it, all the parts are relatively safe. You know, you've got sticky out parts and all sorts of stuff. Nothing's moving about. Now you have a look at this and see what happens when I shake that. These flop around all over the place. And look at how delicate these parts are. And that sprue, that branch there, moves all over the place. And this is in one bag with these and the larger parts. And I spent about just under a quarter of an hour untangling all of this because there's no frame. It's interwoven itself. And absolutely, a youngster pulling that out with their excitement and wanting to get the parts out is going to break parts, without doubt. And as a result, I've already got one part that's come adrift. We moved away from this style of doing parts for a reason. So why would we go back? I'm sorry, Airfix, but don't do that again. That was really, really silly. Yeah. You run such a risk of people receiving damaged parts. So why you would do it, I don't know. I can only imagine it's to use less plastic and therefore be better for your environmental footprint and save some money. But we know the plastic parts are actually a fairly cheap element of the overall package. So whatever you're saving, it's not worth it. Because I am not happy about that, and these open-ended thin parts running the risk of getting damaged as they get interwoven into all of this, which is inevitable and did happen. So sorry, Airfix, that is a rubbish idea. Please don't do it again. Right, tree A has a great big chunky A in the corner in there. I really love that. It means you've not got to mark your sprues. It's easy to find the right sprue. Whether you're a youngster or more experienced, it's helpful, so great. We've got here our base, and it's relatively nicely moulded. There is a little bit of sink in it, which might bother more experienced modelers. It won't bother youngsters at all, but you're always going to get that with these chunky things. But yeah, you've got some ejector pins to remove, but all in all, a nice little display base or part of it. I've got the other two parts here, and they've bothered to put fastener detail on, which I think is a really nice touch. There you go, you can see that in the light. So very, very nice idea. We've got our life preservers there, and we've got little bits of rope marked on there. You'll see it more clearly at the end of the video when you can see some close-up photographs. The parts are all nicely detailed, but also nice and chunky. So for smaller hands with a bit less dexterity, good and easy to use. Then we've got some aerials. Again, look how vulnerable they are on there, even in this harder plastic. Yeah. But they're nicely done. They're probably oversized, so some modelers might want to look at whether they want to replace them or not, but do your research, they might not be oversized. These larger ones appear to have a bit of a gradual taper, But I think they'll look perfectly fine. We've got a little radar piece there, quite a bit of seam cleanup on that, just because of the rotation of it in the mold halves. Yeah, then we've got, I think that's the propeller covers, and the little bits that go on the hull in step 7, the little bilge keels and bits and pieces. And then we've got the framework for, well, we've got like a horn or a klaxon, a loudspeaker or something like that, not quite sure. And various radome bits and pieces, all the communication equipment on the framework. That looks nicely done. Sprue gates are quite thick and chunky. The depth of them is quite a big, thick, chunky frame actually, and as a result, the sprue gates are quite deep. So very careful removing some of these, I think, and a bit more cleanup than you might get. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's nicely done, nicely detailed. Yeah, shouldn't be any issues with that. Sprue B, and this is the sprue that this part came off. It is part B12 and should have been attached there. And what you can see is it's out there, it's really exposed, it's shoved in a bag with other parts, it's been put under stress, it's had things moving against it, and it's broken off. Now, fortunately, the attachment point is in a tab that gets hidden anyway. And there's no real damage on this, but if it had been damaged, it wouldn't have been a problem. But it's a problem that it's come off because for youngsters especially, you know, it's not supposed to have come off. They haven't designed it with it doesn't matter if it comes off. They've designed it to be on there, because if you've got several parts that have come off, for some younger modelers, it might take them a little bit more time to try and identify the part, especially if you've got multiple parts that look similar. I mean, we're lucky here. This is clearly a part that looks nothing like anything else. So what we've got, though, is a really nice rear bulkhead with really nice door detail. You've got nice hinges. You've got recessed fastener detail on there. It's clearly a watertight door. Got a nicely done handle, actually, really nice. So yeah, very nice. You've got a little screen there. I think we have a decal that goes on that, and then the steering wheel goes on there. So all very nice. The detail's lovely and crisp. There is no flash or anything on this, and I don't see any sink. We've got some details, sidewall bits with details in. We've got the parts that go in to stabilize the hull construction, and some of those exposed superstructure items as well. And this is the bit with a little step up onto the pilot's platform, and then we've got our transom piece here, which has got the mounting points for the propellers there, or I don't know if it's got exposed propellers or whether it's the water jet type. Not really sure, but yeah, very nicely detailed. You've got all sorts of fastener detail there. Yeah, okay, yeah, very nice. No issues with that. Nice and easy to get in and get your nippers in. You're going to have no problems getting in because there's plenty of space around the parts. Well laid out. Yeah, lovely. Right, sprue C, and we've got lots and lots of railings on here. They've done a nice job of getting the shape and moulding that in. That's really lovely. You will have the ejector pins to clean up, but there's not much in the way of seam. So otherwise, seam cleanup should be at a minimum. There's a tiny bit of flash on this one here. Again, it's nothing major. Just trim it down with a knife and then sand it flush. Even though we've got the harder plastic, they're thin enough to so you do have to be careful. And as a way of demonstrating that flex, we've got one that's damaged here. It's got bent back in the bag. Why? Because there's no frame around it protecting it. If there hadn't been a frame, that would have. If there had been a frame, that would have been less likely to happen. I think. Right. So then we've got the more complicated framework, which has all been moulded in one. There's a little bit of sink there, but it will be hidden by the live ring, so it isn't an issue. Otherwise, nice and crisp. A lot of ejector pin to remove. Again, I guess some of these ejector pins are necessary because there isn't an attaching frame which they could have pushed against. So not having the frame has probably also created more work for the modeler as well. Interesting. But the detail is nice. The parts are chunky enough for youngsters, but detailed enough for the more experienced. So the model does speak to everyone. Yeah, very nice. We've got some nice perforation texturing on there. So under a wash, that'll pop out lovely. And we've got a little hook there, which an experienced modeler might want to just drill out the center and you know, just give it a little bit of extra detail. But all good as it is. Hull sides now, and this gives you a real feel for the size of the model. It's not a large model, but the hull is very nicely done. You've got all that shape in there, perfectly done. We've got some little surface details in there, nicely done as well. Yeah, very nice. And yeah, it's going to be easy to put your supports in because it's nice and chunky, the location point. We've actually got the part numbers on the inside of the part, so that takes me back a little bit. Haven't seen that for a while on a new kit. But yeah, very nicely done. You've got a pretty hefty sprue gate, but it's attached to a point where you're going to be adding glue, so that'll get completely covered up. So shouldn't be an issue to take that off and clean it up. And you've only got 2 points to clean up on the whole hull. So really, really nice. They're using this tab system to locate and put it together rather than pins. It's not causing any surface problems. We've not got any pull or sink as a result of it. Yeah. I find that these sort of location systems tend to be a little bit less positive, or you have a bit more wriggle room in, but because it's a hull half, I think that'll be less of an issue than if it's an aircraft fuselage. So I don't see any issues with that. Very nicely done. So what mates into it is this part here, and this has got just one single connection point, which should be it's on a curve, but it shouldn't be difficult to clean up. We've got some nice details on here. We've got the bollards on and bits and pieces. There is the fair leads have been simplified. That's to keep the kit a starter set, obviously, and to help it come out of the mould. If they were doing this as a more advanced build, they'd do those as separate parts. But at this level, it's very nicely done. We've got detail here for opening hatches, which is also very nice and will lend itself to wash. And then we've got the seats. Now, the detail here is light, but you're not going to see much in there. And if you do look in, you will spot them. So, yeah, if people want to super detail, fill your boots, but I don't think you'll see much. So for me, and keep coming back to this is a starter set, I think that is more than adequate. So very nice indeed. And then we've got the structure at the front there on the bow. We've even got little holes in the deck and location points, all nicely done. Some fashion and detail. Bit of texturing on the deck, so that is nice as well. Yeah, all very good. There's no issues with sync that I see particularly. So yeah, I am happy with that. And then that takes us to our final part, which is this superstructure part. Again, one single connection part to clean up, although we do have a little bit of seam on there to clean up, but it's a lovely crisp one-piece moulding with tons of surface detail. We've got raised detail there, we've got the hatches all nicely done. I'm just having a look at it now. There is a little bit of sink in this front end. It's a little bit uneven. It's only minor. I think most people won't be fussed about it. And we've got some nice countersunk detail and nice easy location points. Those holes there are location points for our grab rails, so that'll be easy to construct. Yeah, no issues with that. It's nice and crisp. It's really good. So separately to the kit, you are able to buy some decals, additional decals, and what they allow you to do is to personalize your lifeboat to one that maybe you're familiar with or is local to you. And what you get is you get a sheet of cartograph decals, which has all the different names on, all the different locations, and then you get the numbers to be able to create your own pennant numbers. So I'm going to be doing, when I build this, in the next few days, I'm going to start building this, and I'm going to be building Scarborough because I know that boat well. I've been there many times. I've walked around that one and had a good close look at it. So yeah, quite happy to do the Scarborough one, which obviously isn't the closest one to me up here in Lancashire, but it's one I'm familiar with. So yeah, absolutely, this is a nice usable set of decals. What you can't do though is sell this on when you finish, because you get that and that you can only use the once. So you get the start of the pennant numbers, but that's it. You've got to use the rest of the numbers. So it's not like you can put this on eBay when you've done. So they were certainly thinking through what they were going to do with the decal sheet. But it's a nice little ad if you want to personalise it. But by no means do you need to get them to be able to build the kit. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how well they do with the decals. But yeah, very nicely done. A nice little addition to that set. So there we go. So there you have it, the brand new tool for 2024, Airfix Royal National Lifeboat Institute Shannon Class Lifeboat. What's my first impressions? Well, this is a starter set, and I really like the fact that Airfix have given us, in their recent releases of starter sets, which have all been excellent, I have to say, it's nice that they've given us a boat in that mix as well. And they've done it really, really well for the main part. So let's run this through. Before I say anything else, starter sets are aimed at new people coming into the hobby. They're the sort of thing that are given to people who've perhaps never built a model before, and it's a gift. So as I go through my final thoughts, I'm going to keep in mind the fact that this isn't aimed primarily at experienced modelers. Obviously, experienced modelers, like my good self, can buy into it and can build it up and get lots and lots of joy out of it and what have you. But it's primarily designed with new people coming into the hobby in mind. So some of my comments will be around the fact that it's aimed at youngsters like 10, 12-year-olds, what have you. I think it says 8+ on the box. Yes, it does. So potentially an 8-year-old could be getting this as a birthday present, and you know, how are they going to tackle it? So packaging, I think packaging is absolutely lovely. It tells you, not only has it got really lovely artwork on the box with all action, you know, at night, clearly going out to rescue, a lovely bit of artwork. It's really, really nicely done. Well, it's interesting that Airfix on the starter sets have kept the little red strip with a picture of the model, because on all their other sets they've lost that, and I think it looks a bit classier for losing that red strip, but they've kept it for the starter sets. And it's nicely laid out. It's nice that you get a flying hour, you get a bit of history, so someone can pick this up off the shelf who knows nothing about this and learn a bit about it, understand the ability of someone to the needed ability to be able to buy the kit, and they can look on the back and see what it's going to look like, and it really pulls you into it. So I think it's a well packaged product, aiming itself nicely at that new modeler. So packaging, in terms of the box, yeah, no problem. Everything being in one bag, it's not ideal, but we know why they do it, and you know, lots and lots of people do it, and as much as we'd like them not to, it's understandable. So I'm not going to overly criticize that element of it. And they put in all these paints and brushes, and they're bagged up separately, so that's great as well, and we get some glue. So the overall package, the contents of what you get, outstanding. So yeah, I think it's if I was 8, I'd have absolutely loved to have received this. You know, I would have been pleased as punch to get this at 8 years old and been really excited. So yeah, very, very nice. From that point of view. Instructions, phenomenal. I mean, I often say Airfix do the very best instructions, but they just take it up another level for the youngster, and absolutely nail it. The instructions are really lovely. You know, tiny little comments, things to think about for improvements, your little before you get going sheet. Put it as a sheet as the instructions, so it can't be ignored. I've said that before on other starter sets, and otherwise, I think it's spot on, and there's nothing I would change. From a more experienced modeler's point of view, I question a couple of places where they decide to put parts on. I don't think you want to be putting those hull parts on once you've started putting bits and pieces on the top. I think it'd be easier to do that when you can have this upside down and before all the superstructures on. And I question putting the decals on at the end. They don't do that in their other instructions for non-starter sets. They have you putting decals on as you go, and I think there's no reason, even in a starter set, why they shouldn't do that, because it's certainly, for an 8-year-old, trying to put that roof decal on with all those aerials on, you know, the likelihood of them getting it straight and getting in and getting it placed is greatly reduced. So a couple of questionable areas there. There's always something that you can improve, isn't there? But otherwise, I think the instructions are perfect. Decals, really nicely done. The cartograph, so you know you're not going to have any issues. For youngsters, the long strips, they will be the challenging thing, trying to put them on, keep them straight, have them not rip and not tangle. I like the fact that on their instructions they say dip them for 20 seconds, take them out, because when I was younger I used to float them in the water, and then the paper backing would sink off and they're floating on the surface, and then I'd try and get them out and put them on and what have you, and they all get stuck behind each other, and it caused me loads of issues because I didn't know any better. So Airfix are really trying to help the young modeler out there, and I absolutely love that. There will still be tricky decals for the novice. But yeah, they will look absolutely awesome if you manage to get them on correctly. So we did mention that there is more additional decals available, and that will change the name and the registration number on the hull there. Other than that, everything else will be the same. So yeah, all very nice. So plastic parts themselves, the clear parts, I think well thought through and should look really nice when done. So I think I have no issues with the clear parts. There was a little bit of an issue with this bit here, the windscreen with the flow. That, you know, it's not a major issue, but it's a bit of a niggle, isn't it? You could potentially, a more experienced modeler may potentially look at whether they could replace that with acetate, but it'd be a bit of a faff to do. So I think you're sort of stuck with what you get there, but it's not too bad. And then the plastic parts themselves are absolutely lovely. They're well designed. There was no real issues. I think there was one part with flash, a couple of parts with a bit of sinking, but some of that was covered up. The main thing is, this is a starter set, right? We keep coming back to this as a starter set, and it's aimed at anyone above the age of 8. And Airfix, in their wisdom, have created a lot more work for an 8-year-old. Well, something just dropped off there. I hope it was an ejector pin. They've created a lot more work for an 8-year-old because we've got all these ejector pins. Now, I understand you can't get away from them, and that's fine. But I do contend that some of these are here because there isn't a frame. Because if you had a frame, you've got a structure for to help the parts be ejected from the moulding tool. Because there isn't a frame, you've got all of these. So an absolute beginner's got a lot more work to do on this starter set than they have on other starter sets that have been released. So, I mean, I've not looked at all the starter sets, but the ones that I've had and built, which were the aircraft ones in the main, yeah. So I don't like the fact they've not put a frame on. It's created work. It's created an awful lot of risk of parts being damaged. And as we've seen already, I've got damage and I've got parts come off. I think it's whatever the reasoning is behind it, and they won't have done it without some thought and without some discussion and some agreement and a decision, and there's something driving it. Whatever it is, it's a silly decision, and it's a mistake. And whilst it doesn't detract from the finished model, and it doesn't detract from the fact that you've got high quality, precision moulded, crisply moulded, nicely detailed parts that are going to build up to make an absolutely splendid model, it does make me worry about the future. Because if Airfix think this is a good idea and we should go back to the 70s and have everything on trees for the rest of the kits, that's going to cause me a problem as to, you know, do I actually want to buy an Airfix kit and risk having damaged parts, bent parts? Because I buy kits and I might store them for 2 or 3 years before I build them. And there's lots of risk in that. So whilst I think they've done an exceptionally good job of the kit on the whole, not putting a proper frame round, not doing it a tree instead of a sprue, I think is a big mistake. And whatever the reasoning is, it can't be, it can't overshadow, it can't be better than putting the frame round it. Whatever it is, whether it's saving money or whatever it is, this has created a load of risk for you. Risking complaints, a risk of a new modeler getting so frustrated that they never build a model again because of damaged parts or what have you. Because a youngster is going to just rip all those bits out and they're going to cause all sorts of damage because they don't have the experience to tell them otherwise. So, yeah. Not what I was expecting to say. I was expecting to absolutely love this kit. I'm a ship builder principally, and you know, the subject matter is phenomenal, and I would been so looking forward to the kit. But it disappoints me that Airfix thinks that is an acceptable idea, because I don't think it is. I'd be interested in your views. You know, am I getting too worried about it? I don't know. But I have lots of kits that are old, that are on trees, and I know that they're the kits with parts that are dropped off and parts that are damaged. So yeah, my advice is, if you've got this kit, is to carefully unpack it and repack it. It's actually very difficult to get everything back in the box. So I've taken the paints and stuff out, and what I've done is I've put the big chunky parts in the bag, and I've put one of these outside the bag and another sprue on the other side outside the bag, and tried to separate the parts that way. But I think, because I'm absolutely sure, there's a better way of doing it than this, which for me doesn't work. Having said all that, Airfix have given us a beautiful, beautiful model. I can't wait to build it. If you're interested to see how this is going to build up, then hit the subscribe button, because I'll be building this very, very soon. I'll be starting it in the next couple of weeks. I've got a couple of projects to finish, B17 and the new Airfix Bulldog, and then we're going to quickly whip this up. I don't think this will take too long to build. For an experienced modeler, it's probably a couple of weekends worth of work. But for someone new to the hobby, you know, there's several weekends of getting to grips with this, and what a joy it will be. It's a beautiful, beautiful model, well done as a starter set, and will look great as a display piece. What's not to like? So despite what we've said about the sprues, I think Airfix should be commended for bringing us another lifeboat and introducing ships and boats to new modelers through starter sets. I hope that means we're going to see more ships come from Airfix, because, you know, 45% of modelers build ships. It's a big area for them to tap into, and when they do ships, nobody does them better than Airfix. So thank you very much for looking in. I hope, if you'd been thinking about the lifeboat, that we've persuaded you that it's definitely a kit to go and get. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. It's free, and that way you won't miss my first impressions, my tool reviews, my product reviews, and any of my builds, including wooden model kits as well as plastic. It's all free, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit my PayPal link in the text below. Every pound goes straight into the channel to keep the cameras rolling and to do more fun stuff for you to watch.